Hello, future educators. Welcome to today's Explainer. Okay, let's dive right into this. Competency 004C. Now, don't let that robotic-sounding code intimidate you, okay? This standard is actually entirely focused on assessing fitness in the classroom. But look, we're not just going to sit here and talk about dry exam theory today. We are going to visualize exactly what this looks like when you are standing in front of your very own students, making decisions that are going to impact their health and their confidence for an absolute lifetime.
To really grasp why this competency matters, I want you to step back in time with me for just a second. Remember your own middle school fitness tests? Oh yeah, think about those old school fitness testing traumas. Maybe for you, it was the highly public mile run, or, the dreaded presidential fitness test, or maybe that infamous beep test where literally everyone knew exactly who finished last. And man, let's not forget the pull-up bar that felt more like a stage for pure embarrassment. As a future teacher, it's absolutely crucial to ground ourselves in that classroom reality. We've all felt that anxiety of being measured against our peers, right? So our main goal today is to learn how to design assessments that completely eliminate that anxiety for our students.
Because of that, we're witnessing a massive shift in educational philosophy. We're moving far away from the old school method, competition and peer comparison, and we are fully embracing the new school approach of personal growth and goal setting. And honestly, this right here is exactly why Competency 004C exists. Modern educators just don't use fitness assessments to rank kids or foster unhealthy competition anymore. Instead, we use them to build lifelong healthy habits. We really want students focusing inwardly on what they can achieve, rather than, looking sideways at what the person next to them is doing. So let's get into understanding Competency 004C and how we actually make this shift to personal growth. To pass your exam and really be an effective teacher, you've got to understand developmentally appropriate methods for evaluation. Basically, this means knowing exactly how to measure student progress in a way that matches their physical and emotional maturity. The true purpose of a fitness assessment is to help students understand their own fitness levels, set goals, and monitor their personal growth. I really want to emphasize this because the certification exam heavily prioritizes personal improvement over competition. In fact, studies actually show that peer competition in physical education often decreases a student's likelihood of staying active in adulthood. So if you see a multiple choice question on your test asking about the primary goal of a fitness test, always, and I mean always, look for the answer that champions individual growth and goal setting over peer-to-peer benchmarking.
All right, now let's talk about some of the academic language you need to know for the exam. First up is baseline data. This is simply information collected at the very beginning of a program that serves as a starting point for measuring growth. Baseline data is the crucial instructional tool you are going to use to flip the script from classroom competition over to personal growth. Think of it like a "you are here" dot on a map. You really can't figure out how to reach your destination unless you honestly and privately acknowledge where you're starting from.
And once you have that starting point, you move right into goal setting, which means establishing specific objectives for improvement. Gathering that baseline data just naturally transitions into this step. And guys, this is where the magic really happens in your classroom. Goal setting allows you to have those meaningful one-on-one conversations with your students about their unique journeys. You're teaching them that success isn't about running the fastest mile in the class. No, it's about running their own mile, just a little bit faster than they did last month. To keep all that positive momentum going, we rely on self-assessment, which is the evaluation of one's own performance, and monitoring, which is just tracking progress over time. Now, these aren't just fancy buzzwords. These are empowering daily routines that you'll build in your classroom. By teaching students to self-assess and monitor, you are quite literally handing them the keys to their own physical health. You're shifting the responsibility from the teacher standing there holding a clipboard to the student taking real ownership of their own body and their own capabilities. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is how we actually visualize the application of this. Let's look at something called the pedometer project.
Let's bridge this theory directly into practice by looking at a highly specific, realistic scenario, say a 5th grade walking unit. We can break this down into a very actionable timeline. Step 1, gather baseline. So for the first few days, you just have students wear the pedometers to see their average daily steps without changing their routine at all. Step 2, set goals. You sit down with them, look at their individual baselines, and help them set a realistic target. Maybe that's increasing their steps by 10% over the next 2 weeks. And step 3, monitor with tech. Students use their devices daily to track their steps and record their progress. So what you're doing here is orchestrating a multi-week, technology-based assessment that is entirely focused on the individual.
Let's look a little closer at the digital tools you might actually use for this. A pedometer is simply a handy little device that counts the steps taken. Super simple. A wearable fitness device, on the other hand, is a bit more advanced. It tracks physical activity, but also things like heart rate or other health indicators. Heart rate, of course, being the number of times the heart beats per minute. Explaining how these tools work helps students independently monitor their bodies in a really fun, tech-savvy way. I mean, when a fifth grader learns how their heart rate physically changes from resting to walking to running, they are engaging in some seriously high-level self-assessment. All right, moving on to making instructional decisions and practicing some reflection. Let's pause our explanation for just a second here. I want you to put your teacher hat on and think about how you'd handle a real instructional challenge in this scenario. Because teaching isn't just about handing out pedometers, right? It's about managing the complex classroom dynamics that come with them. So, I want to pose this direct question to you. How will you ensure students focus on their own pedometer data rather than competing with friends? Think about the emotional realities of 10 and 11-year-olds. It is so natural for them to immediately turn around and say, hey, I got 5,000 steps. What did you get? As their teacher, what logistical decisions and classroom norms are you going to establish to protect the integrity of their personal growth?
Well, here is the best practice solution. You must use technology-based assessment specifically to encourage growth and intentionally celebrate personal milestones rather than peer comparison. You have to frame these digital tools purely as personal instruments. For example, you might implement a rule where data is kept totally private in personal fitness journals. When you praise a student, you don't say, "Great job getting the most steps in class." No way. You say, "Great job beating your personal baseline from last week." Ultimately, the language you choose is what dictates the culture of your classroom.
Okay, let's look at some key takeaways so you can totally ace Competency 004C on your exam. It's time to shift smoothly into test prep mode. You know, what I really love about this competency is that doing what is right for the students emotionally also means circling the right answers on the test. So the crucial point is, well, take a mental screenshot of this slide for your study sessions. Assessments support personal improvement. Students must monitor their own progress. Technology can and absolutely should be used to collect fitness data. Goal setting is a vital component of the whole process. And above all, encourage growth over peer comparison. If you just filter every single scenario question on your exam through these 5 bullets, you are going to do incredibly well. Let's bring it all together and talk about stepping into your classroom and your future impact. I really want to help you visualize applying all this knowledge on your very first day. Always ask yourself, what will this look like when I am teaching my own students? You aren't just passing a test here. You are preparing to lead a room full of young learners who are looking to you for guidance on how to view themselves and their capabilities. And you now have the concrete strategies, baseline data, goal setting, self-assessment, and mindful tech usage to build confident, healthy, lifelong learners. You literally know how to make physical education a space of empowerment rather than a source of middle school dread. I want to end this explainer with one final provocative thought for you to carry with you. How will you inspire your students to measure their success by their own growth? When you can answer that question, you are truly ready to step into your new classroom and change lives. Keep studying, keep reflecting on your practice, and I'll see you in the next explainer.